so late? Why are you so late?
Hey, look at this.
He's better than some other people who didn't show up.
Morning.
I think I looked at the clock wrong this morning.
Yeah, I think
I
you did.
did. I think that's what happened.
Morning, sir.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I almost
I must have slept in.
didn't come.
Yeah, your grands? You got your
Yeah, I have two grandsons,
Yeah.
but
Oh.
see, think that Kovacs, you never know who shows up with that.
Yeah.
Some days I come, everything is ready, and
I know.
today I was hoping he'd be here.
Alright. Alright.
You watching your two grandsons?
Yeah, we babysit 2-3 nights a week because
2-3 nights a week.
the father is away and the mother is working at night. So
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Well, that's good for you. Keeps you young.
yeah, I guess so. I don't have co-op for it anymore. That's the only problem. And daddy, and they want to play all day and around all day.
Boys do not sit still, that's for sure.
Sorry?
Said boys do not sit still.
Yeah. Yesterday he was attacking me with the hose,
Yeah.
water hose. The second one is much calmer. The first one is very active.
Yeah.
Are you sleeping? Are you sleeping?
Sometimes.
Sometimes?
See, he raised girls. He doesn't understand boys. There's definitely, I know, like people say, don't be sexist and all that stuff.
Oh.
There is no doubt there's a complete difference between little boys and little girls.
Absolutely.
Morning.
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 I usually try to read these introductions before we start. I
These
never
are
got
good.
around to it.
These are good.
Did you read the objective of the Temurah prohibition according to Rabbi?
I didn't. What did
No,
he say?
you should. I can't explain.
Temurah?
Yeah,
He's got a
read that. That is like really like deep, but it's true. Talks about human nature.
struggle with the Yetzer Hara. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
To add it.
Yeah.
To it.
Yeah. Well, that's just the regular consecration. That's not like Temurah.
The Rambam gets pretty philosophical.
Yeah.
In the Halacha, in the Mishnah Torah, the Rambam gets a little, closer in that.
Did you read this part?
I did. I forgot it.
I forgot it though. I mean, I'm reading it. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Does he know me?
Yeah. Yeah,
I have that thing called Yetzer Hara.
you really?
Yeah, I think I do.
Oh.
In fact, I know I do.
This right here?
Yeah, this part right here.
Yeah.
They talk about the Rambam.
Yeah.
Let me know when you're ready.
I think we'll give everybody a minute or two.
Is that all the coffee you guys
But
this
you
morning?
guys are gonna have to share the
That's all I need
functionality
from
of
you.
your work.
More after.
No, he beats me 99.9% of the
Yeah,
time.
well, you're working to catch up, I assume, that's good.
I think I looked at the clock too long.
That's commendable. You made a mistake, you
I
gotta.
made a mistake, yeah, I made it, this is a mistake.
That's all right. Yeah, it worked.
Did they win?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Oh, you haven't watched it? No, but now I know the answer.
I didn't.
I know they stunk the night before. Yeah, but I watched that one yesterday. They've only told me about 15 minutes to watch that game. Can you believe that first two pitches in the game were the money?
Yes. That was like what you did yesterday, 2 nights ago.
I don't know if it's a record or not. That was pretty.
How are you?
That's where all the magic happened.
That's all the magic happened.
Wow, Hashem, they got a good system here. They have a good system here. Okay. Okay, we're ready? Maybe it's
Comes out to the heart.
You was-
Like on this shoulder right here.
Good morning, everybody. Today is Daf Yud Beis in Temurah in the Gemara, the Shas Bavli, and today's Talmud Torah sponsor is Uncle Mike Holtzman in honor of all who keep the Daf Yomi going. Wow! So thanks to Saeed for setting up the video, and thanks for everybody for keeping us going, and thanks to Hashem for helping us to wake up again in the morning. Modeh ani lefanecha. Good. Today is Yud Beis, and we are at the bottom of Yud Aleph. We are the penultimate line. That's the second to last line. And we've been discussing the kedusha of a fetus. If you had a carbon, a sacrificial animal that was going to become a sacrifice, and then she got pregnant, would the offspring automatically be kadosh, or maybe you would have to give them a kedusha separately? And we saw an amazing disagreement between Bar Pada and Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says that the fetus, even in utero, is already important enough, already has an independent existence enough to get its own kedusha. And we saw the nafkamina. What comes out from this is if he shechted the chatas, the mother animal, chatas is female, and there was a mazel tov, there was a little baby animal inside that did not come out of wasn't born in the normal fashion, but the baby animal inside there was a machlokes, it would need the stringencies of the chatas, but it had the same kedusha, the same level of holiness as the mother, even though it had never been born into the world. And we said it depended there if the person was makdish, the person gave the kedusha onto the mother when the mother was pregnant, and then he added in the child should also have the kedusha of chatas as a chrayas, as a backup. Then we would treat the child with the same stringencies as the mother, have the same kedusha of chatas. But if the pregnancy was not recognized by the owner when he was makdish, then it wouldn't become kadosh until it was born into the world. We're going to wrap up that sugi today. Remember, yesterday we saw the nafkamina was if your friend's wife is pregnant and you want to marry the daughter in utero, and we discussed the Rambam there who says that actually works, but you should do a second kedushin. But please don't try this at home. Please do not marry somebody's fetus in his wife's belly, and please do not marry off your minor daughters, as explained yesterday. Please review if you did not hear that sort of the practical implications here. Good. So we're wrapping up this sugya. Second to last line on the bottom of Yud Aleph Amud Beis. Abaye Minei Abaye Rav Yosef. Abaye asks an amazing question from Rav Yosef. This is a great question to wrap up the sugya. He shlamim, the mother animal is a shlamim. That's a kodshim kolim that we're going to shekt in the Beis Hamikdash in our temple when we get it back, God willing, and eat that. Vlada chulin, but the baby is chulin. The baby is not sanctified at all, because this is going by the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan that you have the option to sanctify separately the ubar, the fetus inside. So what's happening is he knows the mother animal is pregnant, and he's makdish the mother animal as a shlamim, and he excludes the fetus. Rashi points out he is only makdish the mother to the exclusion of the fetus. You could have a case where the pregnant mother animal is kadosh and the child inside is a chulin. What does he do? V'shachta bifnim, and he takes it to the Beis Hamikdash, or he takes it to the Mishkan when we had, and they shekt it as the korban because it's a shlamim. You shekt it inside the courtyard, any place. Mahu. So what is the din on the child? Is this child now what we call chulin ba'azara, and it would be asar, or not? Well, the Manda Amar, Rashi says there's another question, another tzad. It could be even for Bar Pada's tzad, where you can't makdish an animal separately, but it get a kedusha by being born from a holy mother. Vlade kodshim, the Manda Amar Vlade kodshim b'vayason hen kedoshim, for the one who holds that the offspring of a carbon become holy when they come into the world, when they're born. Mi chavi chulin bazara. Would this be chulin bazara? Because it wasn't born yet. It was still in utero when they shekted the mother shlamim. So it's the famous ben pekua, as we mentioned yesterday, as a review from chulin. The ben pekua, the child inside the mother animal, when we shekt the mother animal, on a deraisa level, the child inside does not need a shechita. It's already considered as it's shekted, or it was considered as a limb of the mother. Some hold it's uber yerch imo, and it doesn't need a shechita. Just like you could eat any part of the mother, the child inside, you could eat any part of the child. Obviously, if it's running around, it probably needs shechita de rabbanan, because we don't eat things that are running around. So is it chulin ba'azara o lo? So top of Yud Beis, Amar le mikrina be ki yirkach mincha makom v'zavachta. So everyone's saying, what? What do you mean? So the pasuk of shchutei chutz, the pasuk that says we don't do shchutei chutz, what it really says is this. It says, Ki yirchach mimcha makam, when the place is far away from you, asher yivchar Hashem elokecha, that Hashem has chosen, the sum shmo sham, to put His name there. So then when you're far away from the Mishkan, you're far away from the temple it's referring to, when you're not near Yerushalayim, you can't just bring your animal as a shlamim to Yerushalayim as a carbon every day. And you shekt from your flocks, your cattle. You will shekt like I commanded you. So we know that shechita is not explained in the Torah, which says kasher tziviticha, because shechita is one of those things that there's a whole lot of halachas by shechita, a whole lot of rules, but they're not in the Torah anywhere. They were given over to Moshe Rabbeinu orally, who taught Am Yisrael how to do a shechita. And you'll eat it in your gates, that means not in your shalayim, according to your desire. When you want to eat meat and you're not next to the temple, it's a heter to shekt wherever you are, any city you are, even in Baltimore, and to eat here. We don't have to bring every animal as a shlamim in the Beis Hamikdash. And we know in the days of the Mishkan, when Am Yisrael was in the Midbar, traveling in the desert, they would bring all of their animals to the Mishkan to shekt. And this is amazingly one of the reasons when there's the misononim, people are complaining they want meat, and Moshe Rabbeinu says to Hashem, he says, can we shekt enough animals to feed this entire nation? Why is Moshe saying that? Why is it such a big kasha that Moshe is asking Hashem? Of course we can shekt animals, just get more knives and get more shochtim and shekt more animals. No, because then the rule was you had to bring every animal, every behema as a shlamim into the Mishkan. So he's saying, look, we have 3 or 4 kohanim right now, and there's going to be a backup. You can imagine the waiting line. Everyone wants to have fleishiks for lunch, and everyone has to bring every single animal a shlamim. So you understand Moshe Rabbeinu's kasha to Hashem. Can we shekt enough animals to feed the entire nation? Just the mechanics of it would be impossible. It would take too long. So then Hashem sends what kind of meat? A slav. A slav can't be a carbon, so a slav can't be a shlamim. A slav doesn't have to go into the Mishkan to be prepared and eaten. So that was the solution to Moshe's problem. So you see, Hashem solved the problem. But this pasuk shchutei chutz ki yircha b'mkar makom v'zavachta. So when you're far away from the temple or from the Mishkan, that's when you can shekt shchutei chutz, and you shekt your chulin. You don't have to make it a shlamim. So here that would not apply. So mikriyimbe, we don't apply this here. So it's Rashi says hachi ha'enu yachol lishchot behema zo ele be'azora shari shlamim hi, because we're talking about the mother. The mother is a shlamim, and we're worried about the din of the offspring. The chulin animal is that chulin ba'azora. Now, is there an isser of chulin ba'azora on this animal? We shouldn't eat the child animal. So he says, no, we didn't have a choice. We had to bring the mother animal into the Beis HaMikdash, or into the Mishkan, to shekt it, so we don't apply the pasuk. When you're far away from the Mishkan, that's when you shekt your chulin. We had no choice. We were shekting the mother, so it wouldn't apply. The Toso is back on yesterday's daf, the last Toso. He says we should know the din already, that we could eat the meat, because yesterday we were talking about the rules. If we shekted the mother chatas and found a ben pekua inside, if the kohanim are going to eat it only, like the meat of a chatas, or if anyone could eat it. So it seems that we could eat the meat. Toso seems to say that we could resolve the kasha from there. We could really eat the meat. Of course, we shouldn't do this lechatchila. We should really wait for the shlamim to give birth, so we don't have the question of bringing a chulin ba'azara when we shekt the mother and get the offspring inside who is chulin. Good. So now by minei, we're on the second line of Yud Beis Amud Aleph of 12a at the top. By minei Abai Rav Yosef. Abai is another great kasha. He chulin. The mother is a chulin. Vlada shlamim, and the offspring is a shlamim. Again, this is like Rabbi Yochanan, who says you can independently give kedusha to the ubar in utero. So what if he made the fetus into a shlamim, but he wasn't makdish the mother at all? V'shachta b'chutz, then you shekted the mother outside, which sounds pretty good because she's a chulin. Shchutei chutz ki yirchak mimcha makam. So both say there's amazing musar, I think. It's talking about Yerushalayim. It's like where the temple is. So when you're far away from the temple, then you're involved in chulin, shchutei chutz. You're involved in chulin when you're far from the temple. So if we feel close to the temple, we understand that on a more esoteric level, when we feel close, when we identify with Yerushalayim, when we're trying to make our life centered on Yerushalayim, then our life is more involved in kodshim and not in chulin. But okay, Baruch Hashem. It's a little early for this kind of musar, but it's something to keep in mind. We should feel close to Yerushalayim, God willing. So the mother was chulin, and the child was a shlamim. Shachta b'chutz mahu mi mechayev lo mishum shchutei chutz olo. Is this a shchutei chutz? You've shekted the mother, but that shchita worked on the baby inside to make it considered geshekted. It doesn't need its own shchita. Amar Leis, Rav Yosef answers, mi karina bay. Would we call this Hevium Lashem? This is something you could bring to Hashem. Pasuk says, Laman asher yaviu b'nei Yisrael et zivcheichem asher hem zovchim. So it's order that Am Yisrael will bring their karbanos al pnei asadeh, that they're shekting right now all over the field. Hevium Lashem, and they should bring them to Hashem el petach Ohel Moed, to the entrance of the Ohel Moed. El hakohen v'zavchu zivchei shlamim Lashem osam. So they shekt them there. That's the pasuk that it's the opposite pasuk, that when instead of shekting out in the fields in the days of the Mishkan, you should bring all of the animals, all of the behemoths as a shlamim, and bring them to the Ohel Moed and shekt them there. So we'd call it this. The animal that's kodshim is inside. It's a fetus. It's in utero. So we can't apply to it the pasuk Hevium Lashem, because it's in utero. The mother is chulin. Lishna achrina, or he answered like this. Amrle rawi lepetach Ohel Moed chayivin alav b'chutz. So something that's rawi, an animal that's rawi, to bring the animal itself to the Petach Ohel Moed, to the entrance of Ohel Moed, to the Mishkan. That's what's chayiv shchutei chutz. But this one, the mother is chulin. So to bring a chulin animal into the Ohel Moed, we can't do. So we're not going to apply the isser of shchutei chutz here. Obviously, it's not an isser, but you shouldn't do this lechatchila. You should wait for your shlamim to be born before you shekt the chulin mother, and that way it's good for everybody. You can eat the chulin mother outside, and even people who are tamei could eat it, and you could eat the shlamim inside, and people who are tower can eat it. So then everyone gets barbecue. So that's the eitzah. That's what you should do lechatchila. Mishnah, Rabbi say a bit of a change of pace here, and Baruch Hashem, we're Jews. Jews are good accountants, because there's going to be a little bit of math in this Mishnah. In the upcoming Gemara, there's a little bit of math, a little bit of what we call cheshbonos. So get your accountant hats on. Do accountants wear hats? I'm not sure, but if the accountants wear hats, put on your accountant hat. Ein hameduma medameya ela lefi cheshbon. The mixture does not cause mixture, only according to the calculation. Rabbi say this is talking about truma. When truma is mixed with chulin, it's called medumeh or dimua. It's called mixture. This lashon dema. And what's going on is truma is only for kohanim. Said will tell you it's delicious. Truma is what we give to kohanim. It's about 2%. Even giving less makes your crops putter, but the gift we give to the kohanim is 2%. But what if that 2% truma before you give it to the kohanim gets mixed back into chulin? So then, if you don't have 100 parts chulin to 1 part truma, then it's considered meduma. It's considered mixed up, and a regular Yisrael can't eat this. He has to give it to a kohen, or he could sell it to a kohen for the value of truma, which is less than the value of chulin, because only kohanim can eat truma, and he can't charge the kohen for the truma, because obviously that 2%, that truma part, already belongs to the kohen. It already belongs to the shevet of kahuna anyway, but he has to sell this meduma to the kohen at a reduced price. So please don't have your truma fall into your chulin, because if you don't have 100 parts chulin to 1 part truma, it will make it dema. So why is it 100? So it's usually we talk about chulin, things are batul in 60 when they give a taste. So really, when it says it's batul in 100, it means if it's something called min b'mino, something in its own type. So if it's wheat in wheat, or it's oats in oat, they have the same taste. So then for truma, you need 100 times chulin to be vatal the 1 part of truma. If they were different tastes, if the truma was some sort of cinnamon, cinnamon's a bad example because it might give taste more than 60, but some sort of food mixed with a different flavor, so then you wouldn't taste the flavor, then again the truma would be batul in 60, because 60 we assume we don't taste it anymore. There is a Rashi who says you need 60 and not to give taste. And there are things like salt that give taste in more than 60. So if you had salt that was usser, it was avodah zarah salt or something like this, then you would taste it in more than 60, it would not be batul in 60. But usually when we're talking about tastes, different tastes, the bittul is accomplished with 60, because the assumption that the poskim say is once you have 60, we're not going to taste it anymore for regular items, things that are not salty or spicy. But for things that are the same taste, for truma, you need 100. So everyone's asking, why 100? Why did the sages pick 100? It seems deraisa, it should be batul berov, but we picked 100. The Rambam explains because of trumas meiser. Trumas meiser is the truma taken by Levim who get their meiser. So the Levim get 10% of the crops for meiser rishon, and then they take 10% of that, which they give as trumas meiser to the kohanim. So Rabbi say, what's 10% of 10%? 1%. 1 out of 100. And that's called kodsho. If that trumas meiser gets mixed back in with the original chulin, that makes it kodesh. That makes it holy again, and it's tevel again. So it would have a problem. It would not be edible to Yisraelim again. So since the Torah calls that kodesh, even though it's only 1% trumas meiser, so we see that there's a problem if you have 1 part truma to 99% chulin, it's not batul. You need 100 parts chulin and 1% truma to be batul. But this is how the Rambam learns out from trumas meiser. He says that's where the Rabbanan learn out. Sorry, so the Rambam says the Rabbanan learn out like this, but deraisa would be batul berov. But the Rabbanan, you need 100 parts chulin to 1 part of truma. So it's not midameya ela lefi cheshbon. So to explain this, so what happens if 1 part of truma falls into 50 parts chulin? So that's meduma. So you can't eat that if you're Israel. You have to give it to a kohen. But what if, say, 10 units of this first mixture falls into another bin of chulin? So he had this bucket and some truma fell in. He says, oops, I better take it to the rabbi to ask what to do. And he trips and it falls into another bucket of chulin. Some of it falls in. So it's not usher the whole thing, even though you can't use it because it's dimua, it's meduma, it's mixed up with truma. But if it falls into a second bucket, we only calculate the part of truma that fell in. And if it's mevatel, if you have 100 times chulin in the second bucket, second container, versus whatever truma fell in, then it's batel, and the whole second thing is chulin. So, for example, you had 1 part truma to 50 parts chulin, so it's only a 2%, and then 10 units of that falls into a second bucket of another 50. Then that chulin in the second bucket would be batel, because now you've got 50 times chulin versus only only 2%, 4% of truma, and it would be batul in the second bucket. So it's only midameya elafi cheshbon according to calculation. And along these lines, ein hamechumatz, and something that is chametzized or leavened, as we say in English, mechametz elafi cheshbon. It doesn't make chametz only according to the cheshbon. So what's going on is, again, this is talking about truma. But if you had truma that was sourdough, truma that was yeast, and they often would use sourdough, call it saor shebeisa, use sourdough to start another dough rising. So if your sourdough, your starter was truma, and then you put it into chulin, so even if it's less than 1 in 100, it's not batul, because it's what we call a ma'amid. It's a starter, an enzyme, something called in halacha a ma'amid. Even if should be batul, it's less than 1 in 60. Here it's less than 1 in 100. It's not batul because it created this physical change on the dough. It made the dough rise. So even if you had 1 in 200 parts truma, but the truma was the sourdough that made your entire chulin dough rise, this dough is not chulin anymore. It's meduma again. It's something that a Yisrael can't eat. He has to give it to the Kohen or sell it to the Kohen for the value of truma, because the truma part has caused, behold, it has risen, also the truma. The truma has caused the rising. But what if this dough, you haven't baked it yet, so the yeast is still alive in this dough. The sourdough has living yeast, which is causing the fermenting and causing the air to come out, causing the rising of your dough. So if a little bit of this dough, which is meduma, that you can't eat unless you're a Kohen, comes into contact with another piece of dough, which is chulin, so it does not make the second dough, which starts off chulin, and you add this meduma to it, doesn't make it all meduma itself, unless the truma would cause the rising of the second dough. So what's going on is the truma part of the original sourdough is truma. It went into the first dough and caused that to rise. Now that's meduma, so that's only for kohanim. But then part of this first dough goes into a second dough of chulin, Rabbi say, but the truma and causes that to rise, but only part of that's truma. Most of that first dough going to the second dough is actually chulin. So if the truma part of it was enough to make the second dough rise, then it's meduma. But if the truma portion was not enough to make it rise, then it's still chulin. It's considered batul because it needed the chulin dough, needed the first chulin dough, which had some truma in it, to make the second dough rise. It couldn't have risen only by the truma, so then it would still be chulin, and Yisrael could still eat that challah. We're going to see more about this in the Gemara. So this is lefi cheshbon, according to the cheshbon of the truma's ability to make the second dough rise. Good. Ve'ein hamayim she'uvim posim et mikvah ela lefi cheshbon. And mayim she'uvim means drawn water, does not mess up a mikvah, only according to a calculation. We know a mikvah has to be arbayim seah, which is the shear, it's the amount for an adult to immerse himself completely in the water and be surrounded on all sides by the water. But if you had a mikvah that was a little bit less than arbayim seah, once you get to arbayim seah, Baruch Hashem, it's good, it's beautiful. Once you have arbayim seah of kosher water, typically we use rainwater to fill the mikvah, then you can't mess it up. You can add more. So you can have a mikvah, you start with a real kosher mikvah of rainwater, arbayim seah, and then you want to add another basin, you just fill it up and connect it, and hamshacha, it's going to connect to the rainwater, and it's kosher to add more mayim shuvim, to add more tap water or drawn water. It means they're filling up a bucket and throwing it in. But if you don't have arbayim seah, and you add mayim shuvim, you have a problem. 3 lug, which is a pretty small amount compared to arba seah, is going to puzzle the entire mikvah. So if you have a mikvah that's a little bit running low, might be a little bit less than arbayim seah, please don't throw buckets of tap water into it, because if you throw in 3 lug, it's going to puzzle the entire mikvah. Okay, so that's an issue. But it doesn't puzzle it ela lefi cheshbon, only according to the calculation. The Gemara is going to explain which calculation are we talking about, where the drawn water is going to puzzle the mikvah, which is a little less than 40 seh. V'ein mei chatas osin mei chatas, and the water of chatas, which is the para aduma water that we use to purify someone who came in contact with a dead body, it doesn't make mei chatas, ela imatan efer. Only if he gives the dirt, gives the ashes. So what's going on is that we're going to see the recipe for mechatas. The Mishnah is saying you need to put in the water first, and then the ashes of the para aduma, not the other way around. So we're going to see the recipe on Amid Beis. Vein beta pros, osin beta pros. And a beta pros is a field that had a grave in the field. And typically the setup is you didn't know exactly where the grave was, but they knew there was a grave somewhere in the field. And then somebody, probably shouldn't have done it, went ahead and plowed the field. And when he plows the field, the plow went through where the grave was and scattered fragments of bone through the field. Now, bones are dangerous, Rabbi. Bones are metame with a kadosha, a lentil size. Now, lentils are pretty small. So a lentil-sized fragment of bone could be metame someone walking over this field if they step on that bone. So the beta pros is this field where if someone walks through it, derabanan, they're tame. Because we assume that they walked on a piece of bone that was a kadosha size or bigger, because this field, there's a grave lost in this field somewhere, and then they plowed up the field, and the motion of the plow has scattered bone fragments throughout the field. So we say, the Mishnah says, a beta pros doesn't make a new beta pros. If it had already been plowed once, we're going to see if it was plowed a second time. So you might have thought that extends the din of beta pros to the next field over. So the Mishnah holds it doesn't do that. It doesn't extend the din of beta pros, which is din dirabanan, because really he's not sure he stepped on any bone fragments. So since it's a dirabanan, we remember from way back when we learned Pesach, if it's Erev Pesach and you've got to get to the temple to shek to your carbon Pesach, or you've got to go do a bris milah on your son, so you could go through a beta pros if you get a minesweeper. If you blow before you go. You blow on the ground looking for bone fragments before you walk over it. The Rabbanan lets you do that just to do certain mitzvahs, aseh, like a milah and the carbon pesach. There's a beta process the Rabbanan, which is why the Mishnah is makel here, that doesn't extend the din if he plowed the neighboring field. Good. Ve'ein truma achar truma. And you can't take truma after you took truma once. If you took truma, but he says, you know what, it wasn't enough, I want to give the kohanim some more, he can't go back and take truma again. The second time around doesn't have din of truma. Ve'ein Temurah osei Temurah. Baruch Hashem, we're in Maseches Temurahs. Now we have in the Mishnah, a Temurah doesn't make a Temurah. If you had one kodshim animal, you had one carbon animal, and he made a Temurah with it, he can't then take the new animal, which was swapped into Kedusha, now it's Kedusha, that can't then go make a second animal, a Temurah, after. V'lo vlad osei Temurah, and the offspring of kodshim, like we've talked about, if the mother was a shlamim, and then Mazel Tov had a child, so when that child is born, it has a kedusha, has a certain kedusha, a chumrah of shlamim, but we say that doesn't make a tumurah separately. It's only the offspring. It wasn't kaddish itself, like Rabbi Yochanan says you could do. Rabbi Yehuda omer havlad osei tumurah. What we had yesterday, we talked about this. Rabbi Yehuda says you could do this. Amrulo, they told back to Rabbi Yehuda, hektish osei tumurah, an animal that had a kedusha, you were makdish this animal itself, that can make a tumurah in exchange. Ve'ein vlad osei tumurah, but the one born out of it does not make it Temurah. Good, we'll get to more to that. Montana, who is the teacher of our Mishnah? Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Rabbi Yochanan, Delok Rabbi Eliezer. Our Mishnah is not like Rabbi Eliezer. How do we know? It's not. Rabbi Eliezer teaches in a Mishnah in Truma, Seah shel Truma. You had one Seah of Truma, Shenafla lefachot mimea chulin. It falls into less than 100 of chulin. Remember, it's batal 1 in 100. You need 100 measures of chulin to be batal 1 of Truma, and it fell into 99. V'nidma'u, and they're mixed up now. It's dimua. It's mixed up. V'nafol min meduma, and from this mixture it falls l'makam acher into new chulin. Rabbi Eliezer omer midamea kitruma vadai. That he says it's like truma vadai. You need 100 parts chulin to be vatal this one part of meduma. So even though it's mixed up, he does not say lefi cheshbon. Our Mishnah says lefi cheshbon. Rabbi Eliezer says not lefi cheshbon. And Rashi has this gears in the parentheses, so we're going to read it. Shani Omer, Rabbi Eliezer says, Seah shenafla hi she'alta. He's going to say this first Seah of Truma that fell into the first bucket of Chulin. He worries, he's machmir, that that's the one that came out. They understand if it was stirred up, or if it was mixed up, that's very statistically unlikely. That the Seah of Truma that fell in and then was mixed with the Chulin is the same one that came out into the second box of Chulin. But Rabbi Eliezer treats it this way, halachically, as a chumrah, that the second box also is going to become meduma. It's also if it doesn't have 100 parts versus what falls in, it's going to become meduma because we treat what fell in like truma vadei. Chachamim omrim eina midamat elafi cheshbon shabbat. Chachamim say, back to Rabbi Eliezer, it only makes dema in the second container, according to the cheshbon of truma that fell into it. So if it wasn't batal, the truma wasn't batal in the first container, but then there would be enough to be mevatal that ratio of truma in the second container, it would be chulin. Ve'ena mechumitz mechametz elfi cheshbon. So this should be Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Masnisin to look Rabbi Eliezer. This is also not like Rabbi Eliezer. Titnan, there's a Mishnah. Rabbi Eliezer teaches us Seor shel chulin. There was sourdough made of chulin, vishel truma, but it's also made of truma. So it was both truma and chulin, and it was fermented. It had yeast in it. So it was a sourdough, so you could use it to make new dough rise. Shenaflu letocha isa, and it falls into a regular isa of chulin. Lo bazeh kedei lahachmitz, lo bazeh kedei lahachmitz. But the truma portion of it wasn't large enough to make the entire dough rise, but also the chulin wasn't large enough to make the entire dough rise. So we say in halacha, when we talked about cheese in chulin, we talked about making cheese. We had a concept zeh v'zeh gorem. This and that cause it together. So there are times, like we said by cheese, there was a derabanan, we were mekel, we allowed a zeh v'zeh gorem when one of the ma'amids, one of the catalysts, one of the enzymes was kosher and one was not kosher, but the not kosher one could not have created the cheese by itself. It needed the kosher one also, so we were mekel there, but by here, Rabbi Eliezer is machmir. Lo b'zeh l'achmitz, lo b'zeh l'achmitz, and they starfu, and they join together, v'chimtzu, and from the koach of the truma portion of the sourdough and the chulin portion of the sourdough, with their powers put together, it's enough to ferment, to make rise the entire dough. Rabbi Eliezer Omer nitztarfu v'chimtzu, and they come together and make it chametz, make it rise. Rabbi Eliezer Omer achron aniba. He says whatever fell in last. So what's really going on is maybe the chulin fell in first, and then the truma fell in first, and that finished the job. So he would say the whole thing is meduma because it was risen as the truma. Chachamim omrim ben shenafel iser lechatchila, ben shenafel iser besof leolam ein aser. The Chachamim say it doesn't matter whether the chulin sourdough fell into the dough first or the truma sourdough fell in first. It says iser here, but it's really iser to Yisraelim. The truma is mutter to kohanim tahurim. So it doesn't matter which one fell in first. It's zeh v'zeh gorem. Neither of them by themselves had enough to cause the entire dough to rise, but together they could. So because the truma itself didn't have the power to cause this entire dough to rise, the Chachamim say it's not meduma, it's not dough that was risen, also the truma, so it would be mutter Yisrael. Ein hamayim shuvim posim mesem mikvah. We said this was again ela lefi cheshbon. So what's going on with the mayim shuvim? Montana, who is this Mishnah like? Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. It's the famous and amazing din of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. It's going to be famous right now. We're streaming it live here, maybe. Titnan, there's a Mishnah, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, mikveh sheyesh bo esrim ve'echas seah, has 21. Remember, the mikveh needs 40 seah for an adult to be immersed in it, but it only has 21 of kosher rainwater, me geshamim. That's rainwater. So we know you've all been to the Aguda. They have a Keli mikveh outside the Aguda. It's all rainwater. How do they get the rainwater? Gutters. Beautiful. From the roof. And this rainwater is flowing through these pipes, they're really half pipes, into the mikveh. So they're getting rainwater to fill up that mikveh. We're going to see what if he only has 21 of rainwater and he still needs to get to 40. So how do you get from 21 to 40? So he says, you only have 21, memale bakata, fill up on your shoulder. It means fill up your bucket, put the bucket on your shoulder. Take it to the Mishnah of Teisha Esrei Seah, of 19 Seah of water, Potkan LeMikveh. And you're going to pour it in Mikveh Vehen Tahor, and we're going to stay on Amud Aleph just for a second because we're going to see this Rashi. Rashi says, Potkan LeMishnah, second to last line, Shalo Yari Min Adli L'Toch Mikveh. Do not pour from the bucket into the Mikveh. Tefila B'Shloshla Yugin Mifsal LeMikveh. Even if you're pouring 3 log from a bucket into the Mikveh, you're puzzle up the Mikveh because the Mikveh did not have 40 Seah yet. Bekiyai Gavna in this manner. Aval Yase Charitz Beguma. He makes a ditch and a indentation in the ground. Lemrachik from a distance. The post-game have to discuss what's this lemrachik. How far is the distance? Yari min adli letocha guma, and you pour from the bucket into your little puddle that you've made. V'yikolchu amayim der charitz, and now the mayim flows along the ground through the ditch you dug. Letocha mikvah. And it goes into the mikvah. Hinu hamshacha, and this is hamshacha. This is how you fix mayim she'uvim. You have it run along the ground and it becomes like groundwater. Because if rain falls on the roof and flows through the gutter, as long as your gutter is not a kli, or rain falls on the ground and flows along the ground into a river, that's a mikveh. That's water that's fallen on the ground and flowed along the ground into the river. It's a good mikveh. Good. Now we can turn over to Amud Beis. We're at Yud Beis, Amud Beis at the top. Hen tahorin. It's going to be tahor through Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov's method. Shehashiva mitaheris b'ravia hamshacha. That mayim shuvim, drawn water. He drew it out of the well. It's in a bucket. He can be mitaheret to serve as a mikveh. With Ravia, if you have a majority, the Rove, it was kosher rainwater. Remember, he had 21 rainwater, and he's adding 19 of Mayim Shuvim via Hamshacha. Hamshacha was this process, Rashi explained, of having the water flow along the ground from a distance into the mikveh. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says that will allow you to use Mayim Shuvim, a minority, Lefi Cheshbon of Mayim Shuvim, to fill up your mikveh. Miklal D'Rabbanan, Savrei D'Ravia, V'Hamshacha, Lo. The Rabbanan disagree with Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. They say that's not a good way to fill up your mikveh. Elaha d'chiyasa Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Avin says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, She'uva Shemshicha Kula Tahura. He has a bigger kula in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. You could fill up an entire mikveh using this process of hamshacha. It doesn't need to be lefi cheshbon, according to Rabbi Yochanan. Even if your entire mikveh was really drawn from the well, carried in a bucket, it's mamish, it's mayim shuvim, everybody say. But through hamshacha, Rabbi Yochanan allowed to be matahar the entire mikveh, not just the minority of the mish, like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov did, so he doesn't need a cheshbon. So money, lo Rabban and lo Rabbi Eliezer, so Rabbi Yochanan is not like either of them. Ella, so rather, what is our Mishnah talking about? That you can be puzzled the mikveh lefi cheshbon, according to the count, the calculation. Amar Rava, should be Rava, lefi cheshbon kalim, the number of kalim that are spilling in the 3 lug. Yosef ben Choni he, and it's the opinion of Yosef ben Choni. I don't know if he's the son of the famous Choni Amagil or not. Titania shloshes lugin mayim sheuvim shenaflu. So we know that 3 lug of mayim shuvim, 3 lug of drawn water, falls into a mikveh that's lacking 40. Now that mikveh is puzzled. The whole thing is ruined. But what happens? They're falling into the mikveh. Bishnai mishlosha kalim. It fell into 2 or 3. It fell. This 3 lug was contained in 2 or 3 kalim. So each kli was at least a lug. Afilu ba'arba v'chamisha kalim, or even it was 4 or 5 kalim. Each kli was less than a lug. Poslim as a mikveh. That's the opinion of the Tanakama. Yosef ben Choni Omer. Yosef ben Choni has a kula. He says b'shnaim v'shlosha kalim posel as a mikveh. If you have 3 lug of water and there's 2 or 3 kalim holding this 3 lug of water, so each kli has at least a lug or a lug and a half, and then that falls in. So that's a significant amount of mayim shuvim falling in at once. So that's puzzle the mikveh. But he holds be'arba v'chamisha, if it's 4 or 5 kalim, ain't poslim with the mikveh. So each kli that falls into your lacking mikveh has less than a lug. It's a small amount. It's not considered a significant amount of mayim shuvim to be posel the mikveh. So Tosfos says they would rely on this when they were emptying the mikvayos and then refilling them. So the mikveh would get dirty. You understand? They didn't have chlorination. They didn't have filters so much. So the mikveh would get a little schmutzed up. So they would lower the level, and then they would need to top it off to make sure they had 40 seah. So Tosfos says they would even rely on this opinion that if small amounts are falling in at once, a very small amount, not a significant amount, less than a lug, then it wouldn't puzzle the mikveh, even though the mikveh was chaser. The hilchos mikvayos are very complicated, but it does seem we allow certain times the use of hamshacha, but really lehatchila we use megashamim. That's why, as I said, the Aguda, they have the megashamim, the rainwater falling off the roof, going through these gutters. If you notice, the gutters are not kalim. So if the water goes through a kli, it's not good for the mikveh. So it's not really a pipe. It's not going through a pipe. A pipe is a kli. It's going through a half pipe, as we say in surfing. It's a half pipe, so it doesn't have a kli kibble. It doesn't have a receptacle anywhere in that pipe to let the water stay in there. That's why when there's an elbow joint, if you look at the system they have to get the rainwater, where there's an elbow joint, that would be a kli. It would be able to be retain water there. But they don't use an elbow joint. They use like a T joint. So the water would always fall out. The water would not stay there if it would come out the other side. So you go take a look. That's our homework, is go take a look at their system. And that's a hamshacha to bring that rainwater into the mikveh. And the hamshacha, there are ways that can be used to fill up a mikveh. Good. Ve'ein mechatas nase mechatas. So the Mishnah said only if you put the ashes on top of the water. Mantana. Amar Bichi Bar Rabbi Yochanan. To look Rabbi Shimon. is not Rabbi Shimon's opinion. Rabbi Shimon has a different recipe. The Tanya, hiktim afar lamayim. The Brisa says if you put in the dirt before the water, pasul. Rabbi Shimon says that's okay to put them in the other order. My time, Rabbi Shimon. Why does Rabbi Shimon say that? You will take for the tame person, a person who touched a dead body, from the dirt of the burning of the chatas. The chatas here is the para aduma, which was burned on the hill opposite of the Beis HaMikdash. It wasn't burned in the Beis HaMikdash. V'naton olav mayim chaim, and you put on it mayim chaim. So it sounds like you can put the water on top of the dirt. The Tanya and the Brisa, Rabbi Shimon explains. Rabbi Shimon Omer, "Ki afar hu is this afar mitan ayin? Ayin afar is dirt, like from the ground. Halo afer hu? It's afer mitan aleph. It's afer. That means ashes because you burned it. It's ashes, not dirt. Shina kazumi mashmau. So the Torah has changed a letter. So Hashem changed the letter of the Torah to teach us something. Rabbi Shimon is going to explain mimashmau ledone menu gezerah shava, to make a gezerah shava from this. Nemar kan afar nemar lahalan afar. So it says here afar shreifas apara, and it says over there by sota, the recipe for sota pop, to make a sota pop if she was guilty. So the afar there they take from the dirt from the floor of the Beis HaMikdash. Malahalan afar, it's mamish, it's dirt from the ground that goes into the sota water. Al gav mayim, and they put the dirt on top of the mayim. Afkan afar al gabe mayim. So here too you would put the dirt on top of the mayim. Makan, but over there by sota, hiktim afar lamayim. If you put the dirt into the cup before the water, kosher, that works. That's a fine recipe. Afkan hiktim afar lamayim kosher. So too Rabbi Shimon says by the mei chatas, by the para aduma waters, if you put the dirt in before the water, it would be kosher. So amazingly enough, what did Avraham Avinu say to Hashem? He says, Anochi afar ve'efer. He says, I am afar ve'efer. He says, I am afar as a remez to the din of a sota, which will, God willing, if she's innocent, get her off the hook and clarify that she didn't become tame with another man, and clear up her name, and she can reunite with her husband. And the afer clears up the tumah of someone who touched a dead body. So he's saying, I am afar ve'efer. Avraham is saying in a way, I am setting an example for my children to purify yourselves from any suspicion of arayos, purify yourselves from contact with a dead body. I want my children to have that ability to purify themselves, to come back to Hashem, come back to her husband, to raise the kedusha. So that's Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu knew about sota and he knew about paraduma right there. Good. So that's kosher. Rabbi Shimon says if you change the order, you put in the dirt first and the water, it's kosher. Hacha minala, and how do you know that the order doesn't matter there? Trei kroi kasivi. There's two psukim. It says not on the lav. It says you put on it. Alma efer bereisha. You put the water on it. So you see, you put the ashes in first. V'chadar kasiv mayim chayim el keli. But it also says mayim chayim el keli. So it says mayim chayim el keli. You put the spring water into the kli. It's mashma. There's nothing else in the kli. Like when we say by Yosef Avinu, habor reik ein bo mayim. The bore was empty. There was no water. Well, there was scorpions and snakes in there. It wasn't water. So that's what Rashi says. He brings the chazal. So here, if you put mayim chayim el keli, it means there's nothing else in the keli. But you also said not on a love, that you put the water on the ashes. So it could be either way. Ha ketzad, how does this work? Ratza afar lamata. If you want, you could put the dirt in first. Ratza afar lamala, or you could put the dirt on top. Tana Didan, and our teacher of our Mishnah, who says the order matters, that you put in the mayim first and then the dirt on top. My taima. Why do we have these two psukim? That one pasuk is mashma, you can put in the water first. One pasuk is mashma, you can put the dirt in first and the water on top. Amar loch seifei dekra. He says from the end of the pasuk, davka. That's what's davka. It says that it's mayim chayim el keli. That's the end of the pasuk. That's davka. You should put the mayim in first. V'natan olav, and then you put the dirt on top. Le'arvan, but you put mayim on top. So what's going on is you put the mayim in first, you put in the dirt, the ashes, and then you put more mayim on top, le'arvan, to mix it. So what does he see to say the end is davka, mayim chayim el keli? Dumaresha davka. Maybe it says not on the love, he put the water on it. Maybe that's what's davka. Lo matzisamas. You shouldn't find a way to say this. Mamatzinu b'kol makom is what do we find in every makom? What do we typically find? Machshir lamala, that the thing that makes it kosher is put in last. Afkan machshir lamala. So too, the thing that makes it kosher, the ashes from the Sreifas Hapara, that goes in on top. But really, according to his recipe, you put in the water, you put in the ashes, and then you put a little water on top to mix the ashes, have them settle into the water, because ashes typically float on top of the water. So that's how the recipe works. Good, we'll do a little bit more. Ein beta pras ose beta pras. Remember, this beta pras is a field that had a grave lost in the field, and somebody plowed up that field, and now we're worried that there are bone fragments all over the place. So this was the Mishnaic equivalent of a minefield that you don't want to walk through without proper equipment and checking. So obviously, if there's a grave in the field, do not plow that field. But this, it happened b'diavad, they did plow the field, and now it's a beta pras, so there's bone fragments. Masnisin delog Rabbi Eliezer. It's not like Rabbi Eliezer, we saw in Amud Aleph, Rabbi Eliezer was machmir by truma and machmir by the sourdough. Titnan, there's a Mishnah, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, beta pras, ose beta pras. A beta pras, that was a field plowed, now it's bone fragments, but what if he plowed that field and the neighboring field at the same time? He would say the din of beta pras spreads to the neighboring field. Rabbanan ad kama. So the Rabbanan say, listen, it doesn't make the whole neighbor's field a beta pras, but it does spread. So ad kama, how far does it spread? Ki asa Rav Dimi amar Reish Lakish amar Shimon bar Abba. So how far does the Rabbanan say it spreads? Not the entire neighbor field, but it spreads to Tapia Gimel Shalosh Sados. You can feel it spread over 3 fields. So what's going on is he has his field, it's a box, and he's plowing in one direction. He doesn't plow all directions, Shesi v'arev we say length and width. He's plowing the length of the field back and forth. So the 2 fields that are next to the original, assume the beta process here in the middle, and he's plowing back and forth on the neighbor's fields also. So we assume it spreads some bones to those on the side. It's not going to spread over here because he wasn't plowing in a row over here. It only spreads directionally along where the beta pras was to both sides. So shalosh sados shtei manos, and 2 manos. Kama melo mane. So what is a mane? A mane is a measurement of how far you would go plowing at one time in one line. Mea amma. So mea amma is 100 amma. That's how far they would go plowing at one time. So starting from the middle of the beta pras, and he's going into the neighboring field, which was not a beta pras, so the plow might have dragged bone chips, even the kadosha size. Matame might have dragged bone chips up to 100 amma, because that's when he stops 100 amma, and then goes back and plows the opposite direction, parallel. Kidatanya, like the Brisa says, a chorish es a kever, someone plowed through a grave, ose beta pras, it makes the field into a beta pras, milo mane mea amma. For the width of his furrow, width of his plow line, which is 100 amma. So the original beta pras is 100 amma wide from where the kever was. We know where the kever was. It's 100 amma minefield of tame bones from there on. Abosai shkoyach. Bit of a break from Temurah into our cheshbonis. Thank you.